people who really support this are the billionaires themselves. But most of America think that those billionaires should be paying a fair share in taxes. Most Americans believe that Jeff Bezos should not be paying taxes at a lower rate than a Boston public school teacher. So that's what the next 36 hours is all about. It's about the Republicans hoping that most of America won't notice what they're doing, and that is putting out a budget with trillions of dollars in tax cuts for billionaires, paid for on the backs of seniors, little kids, veterans, and everybody who wants to see America invest in our research future, our medical future. The Republicans hope that everybody will be looking everywhere else as they try to ram their unpopular plan through. The job of the Democrats over the next 36 hours is to hold the Republicans' feet to the fire, force them to tell the truth about what they want to do to the American economy and what they believe fairness is, and that is a country that works for a handful of billionaires and lets everybody else eat dirt. The Democrats are in this fight all the way. We're ready to go.
Ready to go.
Thank you.
Great. Senator Blumenthal on veterans.
Veterans and national security. I'm going to begin with a word that I told my children never to use, a four-letter word. D-U-M-B, dumb. These policies combine cruelty and incompetence in a way that is dumber than anything we've seen in recent history, maybe in the history of the United States. They will inflict pain. These tariffs are attacks on people who put food on the table, build homes, buy cars, have to purchase pharmaceuticals, but they also undermine our national security because they're imposed on our allies, on Europe, not on our adversaries or enemies as much as our friends, including, by the way, Israel. Now, on veterans, dumb applies with absolute force because what we're seeing is a war on veterans. And we're going to hold our Republican colleagues accountable. The message that we are hearing from veterans around the country is they are rightly fearful about the cuts in funding, the freezes in hiring, the firings that are occurring and hitting our veterans in real time with real impact.
Excuse me, colleague. We're supposed to be the tech people.
And we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to be offering amendments that will force them to vote. Our Republican colleagues are dreading these next days because they're going to be put to the test. And those votes are going to haunt them because veterans know that they need the health care that comes at those hospitals like the West Haven facility in Connecticut, others around the country that are shortchanged. There are now 40,000 vacant positions at the VA. Surgeons, nurses, counselors, janitors, schedulers. 40,000 open positions, and they're recruiting, supposedly, for those positions. At the same time, they are firing people that hold those positions right now. Makes no sense. And so veterans around the country are demanding what the VFW commander demanded when he came before our committee: stop the bleeding. We're going to seek through this next couple of days to stop the bleeding in veterans programs. We're going to make sure that Republicans are forced to answer what is happening right now at the VA, where the bleeding threatens everyday veterans. We heard from a number of them yesterday at the shadow hearing we conducted. Right now, the Veterans Affairs Committee is not demanding that Doug Collins come and testify. We're going to demand that he do it. And we're going to demand that President Trump reverse these cuts, freezes, and firings that are causing such irreparable damage to veterans around the United States. And I'll just say, I think we owe the American people an apology. All of us who voted for Doug Collins. It was a mistake. I did it. I'm not repeating that mistake. I put a hold on all VA nominees. And I think part of what we're going to do is demand health care be protected, especially mental health care. No more cuts in the Veterans Crisis Line, and the PAC Act benefits that we supported in a bipartisan way, protect those benefits as well. So we're going to be out there working hard, and I want to introduce my great colleague, the senator from Oregon, the other senator from Oregon.
100% of Oregon senators are in the House. And my colleagues have said it very well. So here we are, 24 hours from the tariff announcement, which for farmers and families and small businesses is simply economic poison. And it is poison that is going to spread across the land, hammering families. Now we go to the next debate, and let me be blunt in terms of how I'm describing it to folks at home. We are going to see on full display by the Republicans for the American people a morally bankrupt bargain. That is my take on what this is all about. And no amount of gaslighting by the Senate Republicans can hide the true cost of what they're doing, the over $5 trillion, and the consequences of the breaks to the billionaires, and making sure they get their way, that people on Medicaid and hunger programs and the like pony up the revenue. Now, the reality is these cuts that we're taking on tomorrow night are going to hit seniors and children like a wrecking ball from one end of the country to another. They're going to determine if your aging parents can be safe in a nursing home. I'm not kidding you. They're talking about cutting potentially staff. Mehmet Oz said, when I asked him, do you think there ought to be a nurse in a nursing home? He said, oh, that's complicated. I said, no, it's not complicated. I know you want to tell people who need help trying to get assistance in the night that somehow AI is going to work for them. But the reality is we Democrats know you got to have some nurses there 24/7 or people can die. So no amount of hiding behind the curtain, which is what we have seen in the Budget Committee, what we've seen in the Finance Committee, can hide the true cost of this tax plan where the handouts go to the billionaires and you pay for it by kicking millions of people off health insurance. In terms of American lives ruined and lost, the human toll of what the Republicans will inflict on America if they're allowed to get away with it is going to be horrific. And what you're hearing this afternoon is Senate Democrats are going to pull out all the stops to keep that kind of consequence from hitting the American people starting in a few days. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. First, the islands. They are the Heard and McDonald Island. They are covered by tariffs. Russia isn't. So basically, what Trump is doing is taxing penguins, not Putin. The only living things on those islands are the penguins are there. There are no people. Questions on this subject? Yes.
Senator Schumer, we saw Senator Booker take the floor for 25 hours. It gave you and your conference quite a bit of attention to the issues that you care about. You have in front of you an opportunity here with Votorama to hold the floor as long as humanly possible to try and extend this out. How long are you willing to go to make your point?
You're going to see the points we made here and other points that Donald Trump, the Republican Senate, and the Republicans are having families lose, billionaires win. You'll see made in a whole bunch of different amendments on different subjects. Yes?
Senator, can you preview some of those amendments, and how many do you expect related to tariffs?
Well, you'll see them on the floor, and there will be amendments reflecting the tariff issue. Yes? Yes.
Just to follow up on Ryan's question, obviously, the Senator Booker's speech got a lot of attention.
It was
and
great.
For being over 25 hours, will Democrats commit to going
As I
at
said,
least 25 hours
You,
on this
you're
voter
going to
rights?
see a whole lot of amendments going after Donald Trump and the Republicans on a whole bunch of issues where they are favoring billionaires and against families. Yes,
Senator Schumer,
Sahil.
if Republicans are able to succeed at using current policy baseline in this bill for reconciliation, what kind of a precedent would that set, and what might future majorities be
Look,
able to
first,
do?
I'm going to call on Jeff, our expert on this, but first, let me say this. The American people are not interested in the arcane aspects of reconciliation policy. They want to know how it affects them. What they're doing is a $37 trillion increase in the deficit. And why is it done? So they can cut taxes on billionaires. So that's the bottom line here, what it's doing. And not just what it's doing to America today, what it's doing to our children and our grandchildren in terms of this enormous, enormous debt that is going to be on their shoulders. And we all know, sooner or later, you pay the price for debt, and it will happen sooner than people think with the enormity of what they're doing. You want to get specific?
Sure. Absolutely. I want to emphasize again that one of the pillars in 1974, so from now over half a century, has been collectively we need to have integrity in the estimate of what any tax provision or policy provision would inflict in terms of cost or revenue. And thus we will depend on CBO. That's extremely important. So the Republicans said, well, we'll just create phony numbers to create a phony estimate and say all of these tax provisions that will increase and create $37 trillion of debt already existed far into the future, but they don't exist far in the future. That's why it's a fraud. That's why it's phony. That's why it's a deliberate deception to pretend to the American people they're not adding massively to the debt. So they thought, well, maybe we'll just put a clause into the budget resolution that says we'll use this fraudulent system. And then it became so clear that it was so out of sync with our precedents that they even withdrew it. Now, essentially, this conversation about integrity goes forward not on the budget resolution, but on the reconciliation bill. So we'll be well prepared to say it was fraud on the budget resolution. It's also fraud on the reconciliation bill.
Thank you,
Can I just add a
everybody.
bit of context here? What I'm hearing from people in Connecticut is not reconciliation, it's not CBO, it's prices of gasoline and groceries. It's what will happen to my children's education. So I think that Senator Schumer and Senator Wyden make exactly the right point. We are going to reach American people at their pocketbooks, in their everyday lives, not with the kind of inside the beltway stuff that most people are focusing on here.
Thanks, everybody.
Feeling any pressure from the base?